Hello, my name is Mederic, and this is a message from Med. Last week, Med and I discussed the 7th chapter of 2nd Samuel. David wanted to build a temple for God, but God did not allow him. However, God promised to establish David's offspring and to establish his throne forever. What will David do to establish Israel as a strong nation? David continued fighting against the Philistines, who were to the west of Israel. Moreover, he took Metheg-Ammah, also known as Gath, and made them his servants. David also defeated the Moabites, who were located to the east, and made them his servants. David then fought against Hadadezer, the king of Zobah, which was located to the north of Israel. He captured 1,700 horsemen and 20,000 foot soldiers. When the Syrians went to rescue King Hadadezer, David defeated them, striking down 22,000 Syrians in the process. David hamstrung most of their horses, only leaving enough for 100 chariots. David also took golden shields to Jerusalem in addition to large quantities of bronze, and dedicated all of it to the Lord. David put garrisons in Syria, and they, in addition to all of the countries that David defeated, paid tribute. Toi, the king of Hamath, which was also located to the north of Israel, learned of David's victories, so he sent his son Horam to ask about his health and to bless him. Furthermore, the king sent articles of silver, gold, and bronze, which David dedicated to the Lord. David then went to the south and defeated the Edomites in the Valley of Salt, striking down 18,000 men. David put garrisons throughout all of Edom, and they became his servants. God was with David, who reigned over all of Israel, administering justice and equity to all his people. Joab was over the army, Jehoshaphat was the recorder, Zadok, Ahimelech, and David's sons were priests, Seraiah was his secretary, and Benaiah was over the Crethites and the Pelethites. Benaiah's men were from Crete, and they were able to serve as David's loyal guards without him worrying about giving favoritism to a certain tribe of Israel. When Israel asked Samuel for a king, God gave them Saul and told them through Samuel, "Behold, the king whom you have chosen, for whom you have asked. Behold, the Lord has set a king over you. If you fear the Lord and serve him and obey his voice and not rebel against the commandment of the Lord, and if both you and the king who reigns over you will follow the Lord your God, it will be well. But if you will not obey the voice of the Lord, but rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then the hand of the Lord will be against you and your king." With Saul, we see that even though he had good intentions some of the time, he did not obey neither God nor Samuel. When the Philistines gathered to fight against Israel, Samuel had told Saul to wait for him so that Samuel could offer the burnt offering. However, since Saul saw that his men were deserting him, he disobeyed and offered the sacrifice himself. When Samuel arrived, he said, "You have not kept the command of the Lord your God with which he commanded you. For then the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But now your kingdom shall not continue." Moreover, there was hard fighting against the Philistines all the days of Saul. Conversely, David listened and obeyed God's commands. While Saul was pursuing David, the Philistines attacked Caleb. After seeking direction from God, David went and freed Caleb. When Saul knew that David was there, he laid siege on the city, and David, after consulting with God, fled. When David was named king over all of Israel, he continued to seek God's will, who continually gave him the victory. David extended the Israelite territory in all directions because of his obedience and because God always accompanied him. The Lord gave victory to David wherever he went. Although we have not made it to the end of David's story, we can see how he has benefited from being obedient. Saul was not obedient, and his life was filled with war, bitterness, and envy. David, on the other hand, was not only able to extend Israel's domain, but was also able to defeat his surrounding enemies and establish diplomatic ties with his neighbors. This is the fulfillment of the promise that God gave Israel when Samuel was still alive, and we continue to have the same options before us. God is faithful and will fulfill His word according to the decision we make. Thank you. God bless.